Prime Minister. So you might just state your name prior to your speech. So
State my name prior to the speech.
yeah, just say your name.
Oh, my name is Hazik.
Perfect.
We want a safer system, and we want a system that can better rehabilitate and better organize the prisoners, even if they are atrocious gang members. So today's debate, we're going to set it primarily in America, and we tell you why. First off, most of the American prisons are private prisons where there's a contract between them and the government pays them to have these prisons in the United States. At the same time, most of the private prisons in America are profit-based. Therefore, they aim to maximize profit and minimize security, minimize cost at most, so that they can have the biggest margin of profit that they can have. Secondly, the reason why we primarily want to debate in America, because most other countries in the world today run public prisons because firstly they want the prisons to be held accountable to a higher standard, and secondly because the demand for this public prisons are sufficient enough, and it's not required to have additional private prisons, like how the United States require that. And comparatively, the reason why we do not want to talk about other countries other than in America, because the standards of the other prisons worldwide are much better than the ones we have in America. Comparatively, like compare Norway and United States, for example, or even Malaysia and the United States, we still considerably have a higher standard. And we're going the next question would be, how are we going to hold these prisons liable? First off, obviously, any kind of gang violence will not be acceptable, and they are liable for that. But it's of course dependent upon the severity of the crimes committed. If it at first it causes meaning or hurt in the prisons in this gang violence, perhaps at first it was a hefty fine. But after a trend of continuous gang violence or the outcome of death, the government will then shut down the prisons, will terminate the contract, and also impose the hefty fines. And of course, I will tell you right now that those who commit the crimes related to gang violence, even in this prison, will also be liable as well. There is still going to be additional punishment onto them, and they will not be safeguarded by the prisons being shut down. They might be relocated to another prison until the prisons that they work for are improved better. But even therefore, they still will fill out their punishment, and will still be put back into prisons, especially abandoned prisons. This deterrence or this punishment will then force the private prison supplies to become more aware of what the government wants. That they will put more more focus on security to minimize the risk of gang violence in these private prisons. And the reason why mainly we would like to propose this debate is because we understand that the sanctity of life, even for prisoners, are more important than the profit-driven business of private prisons. That even though they are prisoners, they're still going through a process of rehabilitation, and we would like for them to be able to fulfill that sentence without the threat of imminent death that occurs mainly in status quo right now in America because of the lack of security in those prisons. So prisons will come naturally under our case, because they have an incentive to continue having higher standards of security or update their prison blocks to allow so that this to further ensure the safety of the prisoners. And in comparative to the status quo, this is the best method for us to curb gang violence, especially because gang violence happens because the prisoners are incapable of being safe themselves, incapable of protecting them. They are open to the neglect of the guards and the wardens, or the lack of ability of the guards and wardens to protect them due to the amount of money they don't receive. Like if you arm these prison guards or wardens, or you have electronic locks, for instance, or higher security systems, obviously it's easier and it's better for the prison system to ensure the safety of its prisoners. But yes.
Two questions. One, I don't think you should narrow debate to only private prisons. But secondly, what is the purpose of a prison?
Well, we can talk about public prisons, but I've told you that public prisons are held to a higher standard. Therefore, essentially, there's already in status quo that they are of a higher standard in comparison to private prisons. And the purpose of prisons, regardless, is to rehabilitate these prisoners, and it better occurs in our case today, because with the updated mechanism and the prison reform that comes with it, the prisons will be kept into a higher standard, where they might be, for instance, that they are separated even better. That there's a focus on isolation of individuals, but also isolation of these gang members that now they're capable of doing so because of the additional security reforms that we will incentivize the prisons to adopt. And even better, with the additional amount of the additional strength and the additional understanding of how to better cater to the safety of these individuals, perhaps the prison can adopt more softer methods, similarly that was adopted by the prisons in Norway, that you can fund into lecture programs, they can fund into humanistic programs that will humanize these prisoners and make them and rehabilitate them even further. In our case, we allow that incentive. We will punish them if they don't, and it pushes prison reforms. In status quo, if the opposition were to argue that there will not be incentive, there will not have prison reforms, and gang violence will continue on further forward. Thank you.
Thank you for answering the proposition.
I think many individuals have locked up in prison, but side government wants to lock them up even more, keep them in solitary confinement, and not be able to give them what they deserve, which is rehabilitation. I think this debate has to operate firstly with knowing the purpose of prisons, right? I think the main importance of a prison is for a lot of individuals to come out of it rehabilitated and not resort back to a life of crime, which side government creates more. I'll tell you why in my speech later on, right? But let's point out a little bit of convenience and they try to point out. One, they want to make this debate only about private prisons, but I think this debate operates on both, right? Public and private, because when you hold the prison liable, you hold the prison department liable, and the prison department being liable means that it operates wrong among all the areas, right? I think the prison department has the same intent. But then the second thing they want is really convenient, really soft line to begin with. Literally, the argument that they have is that they wanted softer rehab, right? And they wanted to paint a picture of Norway. But here's the problem, right? They say the debate is in US, but they want to take a model from Norway. The reason why it won't work, because the cross-section of society, the diversity in the society is really, really different. What do I mean by this, right? Norway is a lot of white individuals, and that's why racism is not as prevalent there. I think in prisons, especially prisons in America, racism is really prevalent, and that's why I think we are happy with that gangs. I'll tell you why it's exclusively something that we can get under our work. But let's go for a little bit of, let's argue, right? So firstly, I'll tell you of the circumstances of a lot of individuals inside the prison cells. Firstly, we have to understand the circumstances of a lot of minorities, right? More often than not, minorities are alone. They're in prison, they're prisoners there. They don't really have much of a support structure. A majority of them are white individuals to begin with, or if there are more black individuals, they still need some form of support structure. Everyone needs it, right? And some are unfortunately wrongly convicted of the crime. I'm not saying all, some are. I think those individuals also need some sort of protection. We also have to understand that in prisons itself, there are a lot of ultra-nationalists inside prisoners as well, right? What do I mean by this? For example, biker gangs who have committed racist crimes, right, are also there. And for example, those individuals are also part of biker gangs and always hated African Americans or Mexicans, right? I think the reason why gangs are really important is because these minorities need some sort of support structure. And the reason why the support structure is able to be achieved is because, one, we have to understand that oftentimes if that minority or the person of the same color is much more relatable, it's much easier to relate to that individual. The reason why it's much more easier to relate to that individual probably has the same background that you came from. If the individual came from Queens, you probably came from Queens as well. That means that you have some sort of bonding type or some sort of bond with that individual. Or secondly, I think here's the more important part, right? Why gangs is really important. That they have physical protection. I know a POI is about why this exclusive will be coming out. I'll tell you why this is exclusive. Secondly, that physical protection is really important because that physical protection is, or the protection means that they won't be harmed by another gang, right? The reason why this is true is because other gangs don't want to fight one gang because there's more to lose, right? I'll tell you why as well later on. But let's go to the more important part, which is why side government cannot have gangs. The reason why side government cannot have gangs in their world is because there's an active incentive to always clamp down on gangs, right? Because they literally don't want any gang violence. That means literally, right, OG and PM considered they'll have more laws, they'll have more checks and balances. That means that if there's any sort of inkling that a group of individuals will suddenly come about, they immediately crack down on it. The reason why they have an incentive to do so is apparently, according to them, a lot of these prisons don't want to lose, one, maybe their contract, or two, don't want to lose their jobs. These prison guards don't want to lose their job, don't want to be held liable for it. So they have more incentive to clamp down because they don't really care. They care more about their jobs to begin with, right? So I think government cannot have gangs. There'll be more clamp down on them. So I don't think they can claim that as non-exclusive sit down. What's the impact of a lot of my arguments, right? I told you. The impact is that, one, because there's a sense of relatability and shared experiences and also physical protection, it's much more easier to rehabilitate, right? Because now prisoners will be more open to the idea of more open instead of constantly fearing for the life, right? There's less stress to begin with. And the reason why they also resort to these criminals who are in prison will also resort to less violence because oftentimes violence is a survival tactic, right? That people often, like in prison, especially in prison cells, the reason why you harm another individual because you are afraid of your life, right? A lot of this is happening in the world. When there's a gang to defend you, right? That fear is not as prevalent as side of government. Because the reason this is so is that, one, you literally have community backing you up. That fight or flight mode is not as prevalent as theirs in their world. In their world, they have more individuals resorting more to crime. This means that if at the end of the day, we get to prove to you there's better for a rehab process, I think we get open.
So are you saying unmitigated violence that leads to death is also a survival tactic?
Now I'll talk about mitigation. Why? Thank you. Beautiful segue. Mitigation, right? 3 reasons why I think it's easier for us to clamp down on violence, right? If there is any. One, we have to first say, for 3 levels of mitigation. Firstly, I think gang violence doesn't happen as often as the side government wants you to believe. The reason why is because, one, if the gang violence happens, that one, the loss is more than what they gain, right? Because one, literally everyone in that particular gang literally goes to war and starts having more violence and risking going to solidarity confinement as well. I think, so this is basically the mutually assured destruction argument, right? If both go into it, both loses out even more, right? Because of that, they wouldn't want to go in as much, have as much gang violence. But secondly, it's also easier to clamp down, right? The reason why it's easier to clamp down in our world, because if there's a gang, that means there's also a gang leader, right? In our world, they actively clamp it down, it's harder for you to pinpoint who that person is. So I think in our world, it's much easier to clamp down and put that leader into solidarity, like put that gang leader into hold him liable even easier. But secondly, I think the reason why gang leaders, but thirdly, the reason why the reason why gang leaders won't fight is because they might risk losing a chance of, for example, parole, or losing chance to lessen their prison sentence to begin with, right? So I think because of these three reasons, do not believe when Gov say that this is a really, really big problem. I don't think so. I think gangs are really important for the well-being of a lot of minorities and the well-being of a lot of individuals. I think rehabilitation process is really important for prisoners. I think the only way they get it is if you give them a sense of a community.
Ooh. Invite DPN here.
Yeah. Some clarification. This debate on our side, we're not talking simply about private prisons. We're just saying the impact on private prisons would be much bigger and it would be much visible. And because they are at large right now, because government simply don't want to be able to take the responsibility of prisons, we believe that this debate needs to occur where you need to be able to take into account that private prisons are the ones where this particular liability is most likely to occur. Let's take a look at what their case so far was for, right? They haven't been able to defend violence and why that is something that is extremely justified to occur in prisons. What they've told us is that gangs are necessary. We agree, gangs are necessary up to the extent where you have to belong to a community, where you have the sense of sharing contraband or even wanting to be able to plan something later on, right? But we believe that what is important, what is the most important thing to go to defend on side government that came up to check us is that the sanctity of life that prisoners have inside prisons should always be something that you need to go to defend. Imagine yourself if you go to prison for a wrongful conviction and at this point you're killed by another gang for no absolute reason, just because you're black or something, right? It basically means that the prison system has failed and it hasn't been able to fully fulfill its responsibility, which is basically to be able to protect the prisoner until you're able to pass on the justice that you want people to have, right? So in this specific debate, the protection argument that they want to have is very difficult for them to be able to place it, especially when you want to defend violence occurring on people also. Second thing, they told us that wardens already care about their jobs and that is already good enough as deterrence. So the issue that they want to have is that prisons being liable at this point makes it very difficult, makes it a lot more stringent. We're completely fine with this argument happening because you need to look that more often than not, when you want to go to maximize profit incentives in private prisons, the likelihood of you to be able to provide the bare necessities is always going to be at the most basic level, which means they're probably still going to be using a lock and key to be able to safeguard prisoners. The big bars that they're going to be using are probably going to be the cheapest they can find also. The likelihood of you giving the nutrition that you want to have in these prisons will also be something that's extremely shit, right? Which means that what we're doing is we're simply signaling a lot of these prisons to be able to move some of the profit that they're already getting towards funding the prison. It means that the profit that they're able to get is already something that is already given to them by governments, right? It is something that is already taken out of taxpayers' money. So this debate is about that particular thing. The reason we haven't heard any case why this is bad for the entire system on their side. We also want to be able to argue that the function of prison, more often than not, is to be able to get rehabilitation. At the point at which you die and you're not able to get a form of rehabilitation, it basically means that you're simply being put in a hot chamber where you have nowhere else to go, and the likelihood of you to be able to die or to get assaulted is also going to be high. They then told us that gangs wouldn't want to fight. We say, great, this doesn't affect communities where gangs don't fight at all and already have the deterrence factor. We've already told you that we already have a different hierarchy of fighting, right? Which means that all we want to do is simply signal prisons that they aren't functioning as well, and we need to reduce the violence that's occurring inside the prisons. What is the worst thing that can happen when you continuously let this go unchecked? More often than not, you're probably going to be having a lot more murders that are going to be occurring in prison without anyone holding liability for this entire thing. The bigger debate is how we're able to achieve the deterrence factor for systemic change. Because we haven't heard much coming about how the system would naturally want to progressively become better, and how this policy is specifically banned when you hold prisons liable for gang violence. So when you want to be able to change systemic adaptations, it's extremely difficult to be able to have a blanket policy that's put onto every single prison. What most likely occurs is that governments usually send in counselors to give lectures to prisoners that don't give a shit about what's occurring, right? But when you have an authoritative figure, which is more often than not the prison, and the guards and the shareholders that are going to be there, and you're going to be signaling them to change. Otherwise, you're going to be losing your badge out. You're going to be losing the profits that you already have. The likelihood of to be able to want to be able to create the changes in order to be able to have an effective prison system is also going to be there. Which means that the likelihood of to be even being sent to the SHU or being sent into solitary confinement would also be less likely to occur in the future. When you have more money being pumped into research into prison systems, right? When you have more systems that are able to be able to track individuals and their movements, the likelihood of to be able to have the likelihood to come up with newer and better ways to be able to incentivize prison systems to be more effective would also be that in our world, right? We believe that this policy needs to also be able to inculcate that this boils down to each and every prison system, which means that what is extremely important to realize that if you have one prison with less violence and one prison with more violence, if you close on the prison with more violence, the likelihood of you to be able to create a systemic change where you're able to reduce the violence occurring on a net is also going to be there, because now you're able to change the top to bottom managers that are going to be handling the prison systems in and of itself, right? Which means that you're more likely to be able to incentivize prison systems that are effective, or prison companies in the specific sense that are going to be effective also. We haven't seen much argument come up from that side as to why private prisons cannot be part of the debate and only need to be a public debate also, right? They haven't been able to tackle as to why the debate cannot accept the particular thing, or why changing a prison system itself, or changing the contract that is given to a particular prison system is something that is horrible. We think that even if you are able to do all of this, right, the reduction of the gang violence is most likely to occur on our side, because the simple ability to be able to add better security features into the prison is something that is more likely to occur. We agree that even if you have prison systems that have gangs that are always going to be neck and neck, and at any time you can fight and someone's going to die, we believe that when you have added security features, at the advantage of the likelihood of you to be able to react to something occurring is also going to be much higher, which means that you can stop something from occurring right before it occurs. And if that is able to happen, we win the debate, for sure.
To stop gang violence, will you put everyone in solidarity confinement?
No, of course not. There are obviously going to be better punishments that are going to be occurring, right? This debate isn't just about the short term, and isn't just about utilizing the methods that we have right now. It isn't just about the methods that are utilized in Orange and New Black also, right? Because we need to be able to realize that you want to be able to have a prison system that is able to be able to change a person. It's not just about having a prison system that acts as a box and just put people in and take them out later on. It's also about changing the mindset of individuals, which you can only do through softer stances, right? Which means more community building, which also looks like more involvement into their private lives and trying to have one-to-one counseling sessions maybe. And that can only occur when you have more money being pumped into these prison systems. And really, that, for that particular reason, on a comparative also, on our side, at least we have prisons that care more about their prisoners. On what OP has is prisons that are responsible, but the likelihood to be able to get outcomes is very little, because the money that you want to be able to have is also going to be less. The reason why a lot of wardens are able to execute a lot of things that they want to do is because of the lack of funding that exists within prison systems in and of itself. Which means that the simple fact that you're able to get more money is something that's going to be able to get us the reduction in gang violence that we want to achieve.
Thank you. I'll back here.
This debate is simple, right? The debate centers around which is a better world for prisoners. A world in which they're constantly forced to live alone, they're constantly forced to put aside the benefits of socializing, the benefit of communalism, those kind of benefits do not agree to underside government for a simple reason. They cannot have their cake and eat it too. They cannot say they want to have gangs, but some prisons are going to run around and stop you just at the brink of gang violence. No. Profit incentivized prisons are going to do the most efficient thing, the most easiest thing. Stop socializing, stop allowing prisoners to coalesce, actively look for patterns and stop people from joining up, stop support command structures, stop power structures from forming in the first place, because then it's easier to control everybody. How do they control everything? They consider itself, right? It's going to be more locks, more bars. I don't care, cheap bars, expensive bars, I don't know why it matters, but more bars, which means that you stay alone in your own self. Worst case scenario, yeah, sure, shit. But what's more likely to happen under this debate is not just about the fancy Norway prison that gives you a fridge, right? No, the debate is about those prisons with huge general population kind of prisons, right? Which means that if you are a minority, you're already scared, maybe you're wrongfully convicted, you're put into a cell, and maybe you have to deal with a white person with a Hitler tattoo that's just sitting in the next bed with you, but you don't have the assurance that your safety is somewhat protected by the threat of mutually assured destruction because your gang is there to stand up for you. You don't get that. You don't get to go and talk to your gang. You don't get to go and talk to the people with the same shared life experiences with you about how can your prison experience make you a better person. How you are more open to counseling sessions, no matter how shitty God wants to say they are. There is counseling, there is some rehabilitation. But the debate boils down to the fact whether or not you're open to the rehabilitation. So before I do go on and extend on our speech, talking to you why status quo is more than enough to deal with gang violence, how second of all it's not that big of a problem as God wants to make it to be. I'll tell you why support structures are so important and support structures are integral for rehabilitation to happen. Support structures and gangs are synonymous, you cannot separate them apart. Right? No, thank you. Before that, I'll give you a few of OG's materials. First of all, they come and say they can have gangs under their side as well, but we don't see how they would do this. No analysis from their side saying how they would allow for a group of people to coalesce, join their separate groups, have these gangs, have all the benefits that gangs exclusively give you, but somehow manage to stop it at the brink of it becoming a fight, right? So that only means one thing. If they say they can have gangs, at the same time not have gang violence, they agree to the premise that gangs can exist without violence, right? We said that's a policy coming from their side. Second of all, they come and talk a little bit about profit incentive. No, look, your private contractors, your private prisons are just going to throw away their profits because they think they're going to get sued. Here's what's going to happen. The first priority for them is their profit margin, which means they now look to how efficiently can we deal with this new threat of liability. That means not having more guards possibly or having better surveillance so that they can have gangs and stop it from becoming violent. That means just lock everybody up, no social time, no yard exercise, because it's much cheaper that way, right? There's no threat of gang violence. We don't let gangs happen in the first place. Without exclusively telling us how they're going to have the benefits and then stop the harm, we say they cannot run away with that convenient framing. Next, brother. We come and say that threat of liability means more structural change will happen. We say sure, but they never prove why the change is something beneficial in the first place. Given that we give analysis to you to say that change leads to an overall worse experience for a prisoner or an inmate, and it takes away from the support structure that they could have had with the gang, which means that lesser chance of rehabilitation being successful. We say the structural change is sure to happen, but the structural change is what I talked to you about, right? That means more policing, more regulation perhaps, less social time, less socializing, less ability to join and talk about and have the amplification effect of having a support structure, having a safe space to talk about your new experiences, whether you're possibly benefiting from counseling without being scared that, you know what, I still have to go back to my own side at the end of the day, I'm still scared of the white guy beside me, right? I do get this part about a private thing. I think the only exclusive thing there is that profit incentive is a part of their case. I've already told you why the profit incentive backfires at the point at which you put the threat of liability. Structural change is sure to happen. We tell you gangs are a problem because gangs are a problem. This debate has happened across both sides because gangs, more often than not, occur on both worlds, right? Private prison, public prisons. It happens anyway, right? That means let's get to arguments first. I think I've already hinted at this, but let me make this clear, right? Sure.
You talk about gangs very confusingly, right? So are you saying that gangs are like a sort of friend group? You know, gangs are intrinsically associated with violence, which often disproportionately targets the minorities that you want to protect. So are you saying that there's violence as a legitimate alternative to rehabilitation and other support structures that are actually good and do not cause violence?
Simple. If you listen to our speech, I will tell you how gangs are essential complement to the rehabilitation process, how they afford a safe space and a support structure for you to then benefit from rehabilitation. Now, sure, for this debate does need to argue that there's some level of violence, but here's where we do what we need to do and mitigate it. Why is the threat of individual liability enough to mitigate gang violence and stop it from happening most of the time? Simple. Gangs operate on its power structure, which means that the gang leaders exert a certain amount of control on their members. These gang leaders also tend to be the more rational one, the more reasonable one among them, because these people have to play internal politics as well. That gang leader recognizes that if the gang violence is traced back to him, that gang leader loses their parole privileges, loses their own whatever privileges in their prison, more likely to go to solitary confinement. This is why prisons all across the world have internal power structures, have internal command structures. There are certain persons of authority among the group of prisoners and inmates that authorities respect and authorities deal with, because these people are more likely to be able to control your inmates and keep them away from violence. And the point at which this is enough under our world, the exclusive form of this motion is the added enforcement and regulation that OG wants to talk about, right? Before I told you why that exclusively harms the experience for inmates, why it takes away the support structure, right? We tell you that these people are more likely to be rational, reasonable, and recognize that there's nothing to be gained from a gang war or a turf war in that prison. Given that, why is the support structure so important? How I already told you, why there's no relatability, there's no shared experience. Something you're not going to get under side government, because you don't get to talk with somebody who's went through the same shit that you've been through. You're less likely to talk with somebody who's went through the same discrimination and racism that you've been through. Given that, and the fact that you still fear for your physical protection because your gang isn't there to tell you that nothing will happen to you, means always looking at it from a survivalist perspective. You're not open to listen to the counsellor talking to you about your job opportunities because you're still scared. How am I going to get through this 5 years? And then why do I have to think about that later? We take away the threat of safety, we take away the threat of danger, and make people more open to the system. We don't get people who resent the system, unlike the government, where you're locked up like an animal in a cage every day. You're more likely to be fuck the system, I'm scared of the system. You come out, you still don't trust the system. We get people to the system because the system recognizes that people need to be communal, people need to be social, and people need to be such way to benefit of the system and rehabilitation. That's why we exclusively give you rehabilitation that works with the sense of communalism, relatability, and shared experiences. Something like that cannot have, because unless they come out with a miraculous way of stopping gang violence right at the brink of it happening, we don't see a case from government.
I think the most interesting thing that OO wants us to believe today is that the person in the gang, the leader of the gang, the one that's caused the most violence in prisons, the most violence in society, is rational and reasonable. We think that's a huge problem of what's coming out of OO. They have mischaracterized what gangs are within prisons, especially what OG said, we're going to set up an American world, and we look at it from an American perspective on how gangs are, and we're going to tell you explicitly why their narrative of gangs is extremely harmful. Number one, we never thought we had to explain this for the opening, but gangs are bad, guys. Okay? It's not a friend group, it's not a social group that you talk to each other and have some sort of support system. Gangs work in a hierarchical system. They are leaders that exploit the weakest within their gangs to make sure they get the most benefit possible. So what tends to be the things that happens in prisons, and this is something really simple. They use it for drugs, they use it for contraband, they use it for violence to get more food or more like things they need to survive within prisons. We think that's the general nature of gangs that occur, and we think it's unrealistic to take OO's example. OO's a support system, we all work to get each other for group therapy or some stuff like that, right? Second of all, we realize the target the weakest individuals in prisons in two ways. Number one, gangs like to target the ones that gangs are target the people that are weaker there, they exploit them, they take their stuff, all that sort of things. Second of all, we told you already, gangs work in a hierarchical system. There's a leader, and they agree to this. There's a leader, there are a bunch of people down there, there's some sort of internal politics. But we realize gangs exploit the weaker ones within their groups, make sure they're able to get the most benefit possible. We think this is the general nature of gangs that everyone we engage with. But realize I think there's a really huge mistake with what's happening in this debate. Because when we're going to talk about whether we want to hold prisons liable, we need to explain the principle of why we should hold prisons accountable. And it's really important to say that quick. And then, okay, so quick simple principle, right? We think our prisons are generally responsible for rehabilitation. It's something we've all agreed upon. They're supposed to change and help. We're supposed to protect the weakest ones in society. Protect the weakest, and specifically the weakest ones in prisons. They're supposed to hold them together and make sure they don't cause more violence. We think so. This sort of rehabilitation that comes from what? This sort of rehabilitation that was not engaged by OG for the things that what happens within gangs. So let's take them at a first. Or even if they join gangs and you are now part of a gang. The moment you get out of prison and after being part of a gang in prison, you're likely to go out to society and continue being part of gangs. Because you got to accept the structure that gangs are beneficial. And even if you accept the narrative from us that prison gangs are this sort of social friend group, you tell you the moment you get out to society, that same gang narrative is no longer the same. So we think it's really unreasonable for them to tell you that these gangs are really beneficial for rehabilitation. Okay, so we're going to tell you why prisons are more likely to offer rehabilitation. Number one, realize societal narrative will change the moment you implement this sort of policy. So what does this mean, right? Because when we look at the world today, whether private prisons, public prisons, it doesn't matter. Because they all blame gangs for the gang violence that happens in prisons. This means people in the ground tend to believe that, gangs are fighting each other in prisons, that means it's the gang's fault, they're inherently bad, they're inherently evil. The prisons couldn't do anything about this. We want to change that narrative. We don't think it's fair for us. We don't think it's fair that society will never hold these prisons and these prisons accountable. So we think, for starters, at least there's some sort of societal pressure. At the very moment we are able to implement some sort of policy that tells us that gangs are genuinely responsible for things that occur. Second of all, what is this analysis? Why prison systems are now going to be more effective? Because look, it doesn't matter whether you're going to go with deterrence or you're going with rehabilitation, whether you go with the deterrence narrative that OG says. Because we think it's simple. At the point at which government is going to hold you liable, you're not going to be stupid. You're going to find the most effective method to make sure you're able to mitigate the most gang violence possible. So okay, look, and with that sort of check and balance system, that sort of accountability system that OO doesn't have on their side. Number one, let's say we take OG at the best, we go with deterrence, we're going to extend on that, right? We think we can also go for rehabilitation the moment we see that deterrence don't work. So in the short term, we see that there's a huge, prison wardens see there's a huge huge increase in gang violence within the prisons at the point at which there's increasing security systems. We think it's perfectly reasonable to say that they're going to look for other alternatives like rehabilitation to ensure that it work. So we don't think it's fair for them to say that we're only going to focus on deterrence. We're going to find the most effective method because we some sort of accountability system. And why do you think rehabilitation specifically is more likely to happen? Because we're going to analyze the nature of gangs. We're going to analyze the nature of gangs in general. I think as a general scope, we think that the reason why there has to be some sort of gang system is because of the unfair treatment towards prisoners in today's society, which means there's limited resources given to them. They don't get enough food, and they don't like the living structures and all that stuff. So we say at bare minimum, when you have some sort of rehabilitation structure, we think it's more possible for private prisons or this prison in general to start making sure they're able to have enough resources to sustain themselves, to make sure they don't need to join gangs. When they're able to live on an individual basis, they don't need some sort of communal protection that they want to push for. We don't think that's no longer necessary when you are able to survive on your own before I continue. Yes.
Yeah, are prisoners in the world still racist? If they are, how do you make prisoners feel safer if they don't have a group to talk to?
Yeah.
No, we don't. Look, it's not. We don't care what the most important thing here. Okay, even if we have to trade off some sort of level of racism, we don't think it's fair. We don't think it's okay if you're going to have more violence and more drugs within the prison system due to increased amount of gangs. We think that in itself is problematic. Problematic on your side. What you're trying to do is trying to defend people dying, and we are willing to trade some sort of racism on that stance for that. So what's the specific extension? We want to end up pointing out to you. Number one, we told you why specific gangs. We told you something really simple, but we don't know what everybody could understand. That gangs are genuinely bad. We told you specifically why prison. We told you specifically why the principle of why prisons should be held accountable. That rehabilitation, that prisons should be held accountable, something that's a basic principle that openly decided to ignore, and more importantly, why rehabilitation is more likely to occur, because we are now able to give them the resources they need to survive, for all the reasons probably proposed.
Thank you, member of Block and I.
Okay, so the thing you have to understand in today's debate is that this is going to be a debate on which side can rehabilitate these prisoners back into society in the US, right? But what closing government has really failed to understand that these prisons already have very little money or resources being pumped into their system in the first place, right? So you have to understand that they've completely disregarded most of the characterization coming from opening opposition in the first place, that they're going to result in more cheaper methods. The cheaper methods are going to be things like examples are like abusing them in the first place, which is much more easier than disciplining them rather than giving them all of this better treatment, like better cells and this type of thing, right? So all of Yates' entire speech on talking about how analysis of gang members is going to be useless, because not only have they not bring up an alternative, how the rehabilitation is going to work, we also did not get an analysis on as to where they're going to get the resources or funding to get this rehabilitation in the first place, right? So now moving on, I'm going to be first explaining why both openings in this debate are already totally out of debate, right? So what opening government is that they have this entire plan to like put mini solitary confinement for every single individual, and they're taking a very big soft line to this debate, right? So okay, so if you have this electronic locks or keys, okay, fine, sure, even if you do that, you're going to separate all these individuals into these tiny confinement cells. We tell you that what you understand is that the detrimental impact this confinement cells cause in the first place, right? Such as if you put an individual into a confinement for such a long time, they are also going to become crazy at the end of the day, because they're going to be stuck in this one room by themselves. They're going to end up more crazy because of this loneliness that's being caused, right? So what happens after all of this is that they're going to be unable to be rehabilitated back to society, and this is what their plan is, that in this private or public, maybe both of them, that they plan to apply, is that what happens if you lock every single individual up in this confined cells, that everyone's going to become crazy and they are being unable to rehabilitate back to society, right? So and they also talked about how they talk about so Vishal tried to bring up like other, which was from POI from opening. He talked about there will be other punishments, but he never came back to it at the end of the day, right? So now he also talked about relocating certain violent individuals. So you have to understand in the first place that these individuals, what they do is that they have a fight and flight tactic. So they come in, they fight, and they run away. But what happens if you relocate them and put them in another jail cell? Okay, let's say you put them with otherwise peaceful individuals. What's going to happen? That they're going to do some violent things on these individuals and steal all their stuff. And what is the first instinct when you're being attacked? To retaliate, right? So what are you going to cause that? You're going to cause more violence at the end of the day. So they haven't really explained to us how all of this, their mechanism is going to work. How is it so far in the first place? Opening opposition also has their own problems. What they try to say, status quo is they barely have any. They have to understand that status quo, police have barely any control on these people in the first place, and they say they're going to crack down on these leaders. Okay, fine, but you have to understand they're contradicting themselves in a way that they say that they want to have this like social mini friend group as an important thing, but the moment you take away their leader, which is what they plan to do, so they can crack down and more likely track the leaders, is that the moment the leader is gone, the entire gang crumbles, because the leader is the main power and the social hierarchy in the gang, right? So what happens is that they don't solve the problem at the end of the day. The fear is still there, and they've never proved how the status quo is going to be beneficial in the first place, or it has been proven that it's going to be to help bring people back into society, right? And this applies in both public and private. So now I shall move on to my extension, right? So our extension is that we want to have status quo, but with more stricter rules. And how is that so? Is that we're going to be cracking down on these contrabands that cause these very gangs in the first place, which incentivizes these gang members in the first place, right? So what we plan to do is that we want to have police interact with these these guards interact with these prisoners in the first place, right? So you have to understand that when violence happens, the guards will also intervene, and the punishment is that we won't do confinement. Because you have to understand that there's a lot of damage to these people's well-being if you do this confinement, which is what which is what the opposing government hasn't explained to us, how they're going to rehabilitate these people or any alternatives to the punishments in the first place, right? Okay, so what other alternatives that we would like to present today is that we will just give them extra labor, which is less harmful and to their well-being to their well-being, because we still allow them to social with other prisoners, we still allow them to talk, we don't put them into these mini confinement cells and make them go crazy at the end of the day and make them unable to go back to society. But we tell you, even if these people don't come out of the cells super crazy, but I tell you that they've been stuck in this loneliness in the first place, that they really cannot, their minds have been destroyed in this mental state that they're in such vulnerability that they cannot do anything anymore, which makes them very unlikely that they want to go back, right? So, now that we know about that, is that violence has a very little chance of happening, but still happens anyway, right? So because we tell you that police guard mistreatment, which is this media thing that people still know that these police guards are more likely to mistreat them, but as our plan, we tell you that how we are going to counteract that is that we have police to interact with the prisoners, and the moment they interact with these prisoners, then they're more likely to come with this sentiment that they think that, oh, these police are good people, that they're more likely to not have this anti-police of feeling in the first place, right? So when these criminals go back to society, they're like, okay, fine, because these police are good people, they're not going to harm me as a certain black individual who's always been under police brutality, that they're more likely to be not result to this police brutality who's been sent. Yeah. So now on a comparison, which is more better, right? We tell you that the moment you put these certain individuals into such confinement cells and you try to get this funding out of nowhere to help these individuals, we tell you it is less likely to bring them back into rehabilitation in the first place, right? But on our side, what our extension does the best is that we have the guards interact with these individuals. We allow them to be more social. We allow them to have this a mini utopia in a prison. That's not really utopia, but as long we give this social structure, we allow them to talk, we allow them to socialize with one another, unlike being put into jail cells like dogs in the cell in the first place in cage. So with that, I'd like to end my speech.
Okay.
How are you connected to my proper?
So that closing opposition basically spent the entirety of their speech telling us about why putting people behind bars is bad. We agree, putting people behind bars and putting them in solitary confinement is not beneficial for their well-being, nor is it going to make them less of a violent person. However, there are two things to know. Firstly, that this is not the alternative that we proposed, and we provided an incentive structure as to why prisons are likely to seek out more effective methods of rehabilitation and better deterrence that doesn't involve these policies. But secondly, how is forced labor and essentially slavery going to make these individuals hate the state any less? The alternative that they provided is not sufficient. We think that CEO did not provide anything to this debate. I think that there were two main issues in this debate, and my rebuttals will be integrated. Firstly, about gangs, whether they're good or bad, we don't see why this was an issue in the first place, but since O was so intent on telling us why gangs are good, we're going to engage with that. And secondly, do you actually get to protect people on the ground? Do you get to give them the rehabilitation they need, and also to protect victims, which is something that was not sufficiently covered by side opposition in this debate. So firstly, right, gangs. Both opening houses never actually talked about the root cause of why gangs are formed in the first place. They simply said survival mechanism, and they never told us anything else. But what we brought you outside closing government is brought you the principle as to why prisons should be liable for these individuals and should be liable for this gang violence. Because recognize that gangs do not organically create themselves because they feel like they need a support structure or a friend group. Gangs happen because people come to accept the criminal identities that they have in prisons and the terrible treatment from guards and policies that the state has, for example, forced labor and things that make them despise the state even more, are the reasons why gang violence is necessary, and because of the lack of, and not just because of a lack of funding, but rather a corruption and a systematic and structural corruption that means that individuals at the top of the power structures in prisons, like prison wardens, often take these funds for themselves instead of investing into resources in the prisons. That's why gangs occur. It is not something that is necessary in a prison that functions effectively, right? So recognize there's multiple reasons why gangs are not good for rehabilitation, why they're not a complement to rehabilitation, but instead prevent individuals from actually opting into these programs if they exist in the first place, right? Recognize that people these are not social groups, these are not friend groups in which people have heart-to-heart conversations. I think, and we've characterized this to you multiple times, that for example, it's a hierarchical power structure in which the individuals at the bottom of these structures are often exploited and coerced so that the people at the head can get the most money, they can get the most drugs, and they can have contraband businesses. I think that it's worth noting that you don't even get to minimize racism in this case, because recognize that many of the gangs in the first place are likely to be formed of racial identities. For example, there are white nationalist biker gangs that go and attack African Americans, for example. There's going to be even more racial polarization as a result of gangs. I don't think you get a sense of protection, but rather a sense of fear and danger at all times that makes you constantly on guard. You're never able to feel safe in a prison under their side. Furthermore, even if there are benefits of rehabilitation that you get, you are never able to opt into these options in the first place because you're likely to be indoctrinated into these gangs as soon as you get out of prison. You'll never be able to opt into a normal life. That is why gangs are bad. That is why they're not beneficial for prisoners. Yes.
Most people who enter jail mostly have to enter a gang or face the risk of being discriminated or being beaten up by other gangs in order to protect themselves. Because of the fact that these gangs has a very strong support structure, what then, in the extreme context of America where there's a lot of racism going on, do you take away these support structures from the people who are being discriminated?
It's not that we're removing a support structure, but rather that firstly, this was never a support structure in the first place, but rather one that is born out of necessity. But secondly, that we're aiming to change the status quo by having the reforms and by having more rehabilitation, which we told you about. So back to my issue about why we actually need to protect people. What is the alternative to these gangs, right? Because it's necessary to have something to replace them. It's necessary to have rehabilitation. We think that holding wardens and the people at the top who are responsible for reforms and for managing the way in which the prisons work means that they personally will have an incentive to, if they're not being fired or being put in prison themselves, not to only clamp down, which is a mischaracterization coming from both sides of the opening house, but rather to firstly, fund the prison more effectively instead of taking the funds for themselves, but also secondly, have rehabilitation programs, right? Recognize that clearly that rehabilitation programs are the most effective in preventing any sort of gang violence from happening, because at the point at which you have actual support structure for you to realize that you have an option in life outside of joining a gang or committing a crime furthermore, and to prevent you from having recidivism, the option to this the way in which you don't have these is by having more education, by having more training, by having talks with counselors, right? And clearly, they themselves believe that rehabilitation is a better option and a better support structure than gangs, because they said that gangs are necessary only as a last resort, right? So clearly, that rehabilitation is the better option to go for, and this will only happen at the point at which you hold prison wardens liable. On their side, they never gave us any sort of incentive structure for there to be any sort of change at the point at which gangs are the only option in society. Furthermore, we told you about a societal narrative which was never actually rebutted by side of opposing opposition, right? Recognize that the racism that they want to talk about, the racist stereotypes, often stereotype African Americans and other ethnic minorities as gang members in the first place, which is why they're so disproportionately targeted. You think at the point at which the law sets a precedent for individuals on the ground to recognize that gangs are not necessarily the fault of individuals or because of racial stereotypes, and that they're born out of the harsh conditions of prisons. I think that's the point at which we actually get societal change. It's more easy to push for the reforms and the rehabilitation that individuals on both sides want. Before that, are there any?
Yes. Yeah. So during socialization, racists were not like minorities. So without a gang leader to tell you, don't be petty, don't start shit up. Who raising individuals to be violent?
I think that the reason why people are violent in the first place is because they're in gangs, because of this culture of violence that is born out of gangs, because that gang leaders want to start violence so that they can protect their territory or they can get more drugs or things like that. You've seen that multiple times over and over, and I think it's very easy to realize that gangs are something that start violence instead of prevent violence. I think that is a very big mischaracterization on their side. They don't understand how prisons work. So what has side closing government told you today, and why do we teach this today? Firstly, we told you why prisons are actually responsible for gangs in the first place, why are they responsible for violence, and why principally they should be held accountable. Secondly, why gangs are actually really bad and they do not implement rehabilitation. Thirdly, why we do get rehabilitation, and it's not just about putting people in solitary confinement, putting them behind bars, but rather be more effective methods and more strategic methods that are likely to be taken, because the people in power will themselves be held accountable and will therefore opt for the most strategic options available through a side-posting government.
Thank you. Lastly,
Yeah. I think what both sides of side government comes up and tells you is basically two different particular things. First of all, you want to take on a soft line for rehabilitation for all these businesses, because these people are typically like victims of outside discrimination and all this stuff. So in a way, you want to rehabilitate them with a softer line. And then C comes in and tells you that these particular gangs are bad. Therefore, like because of that, most of the people within these jails are inherently bad. I don't really see how exactly both sides are more consistent under like in the government bench. We need more clarification from them. But furthermore, right, notice how both opening sides take on a very soft line. But CG comes in and tells you that like there's not really much of an extension, right? Most of CG's extension was mostly just gangs are bad. Yeah, sure. Mostly, like there's no particular mechanism presented from their particular side, and like even if there was, it came from the which is pretty much like new material. Yeah. But secondly, they're also very fairly out of this debate. When Yin comes in and tells you that gangs are bad and this is why we should hold them liable, that's not the case, ladies and gentlemen. This is like they're fairly out of this debate. I have hopes for them, but perhaps OG stands a better chance in facing above this. But I'll start in either way later on. Now, I do believe, like, notice that OO, like, we do think that OO had somewhat of a robust explanation of what will happen within these jails at the end of the day. But I think it's very good that the opening half limits these particular debates towards, like, either towards solitary confinement under government, right? You want gangs or isolation. Those are the only two particular options. We don't think that that's correct, man. Like, we don't think there's correct contextualization in this debate. We'll present to you some more. They look within gangs, but they practically ignore everything outside. So the first way CEO came into this debate was to tell you why exactly all of these gang fights are pretty much like somewhat inevitable. We presented to you a plethora of reasons as to why these particular things happen. Like because of existing gang rivalries from outside of jail, that overall transfer to jail once they've been once they've been arrested and stuff like that. Or the fact that there's also a very racist atmosphere in America and like in jails, right? Where many people who've committed racist crimes also do face the discriminated minorities within jails, which only of course will give over some due credit, but they left off very lightly on that. But we come out and tell you that this sort of discrimination is precisely the very thing that that not only makes the minorities fear for the supremacists and discriminate the discriminatory people inside jails, but it also does incentivize a lot more gangs to come up and to gang up on these minorities in jails in the very first place. So overall, the question that becomes, right, will relocation really work in rehabilitation? I think that this directly deals with OG's entire case, and when they come up and tell you that first we'll fine and then we'll shut down, stuff like that, right? Okay, so this one is right in this debate when they say it's not only about the short term, we also have to look into what happens out there in the long term. And that's exactly what reveals what's hella wrong with this mechanism, right? Because notice that he told you many things about the psychology of a prisoner. When you have this instinctual fight or flight reaction towards practically everything, given the fact that you as a minority have been facing multiple threats even outside of jail, even before you land in jail, you being related to certain crimes and stuff like that have developed this sort of fight or flight habit. But furthermore, the violence within these particular jails also do incentivize you to further develop this fight or flight habit, which only incentivizes you to create more acts of violence so that you can survive. I think that this sort of thing applies really much within like Vishal's whole mechanism about relocation, because these are the violent jails we're talking about. The ones you shut down are always going to be the prisoners with the most like are always going to be the prisons with the most violent prisoners, and then you send them towards like otherwise more peaceful prison. Why is this so particularly bad? I think Keith told you spectacularly that eventually these particular prisons, like when you send more people who already have this instinctual fight or flight habit, you only incentivize more violence within these particular prisons, right? Which also means that you, like not only do you like disrupt like these particular jails which are otherwise peaceful in the very first place, but you also don't really work very well in terms of people who are also otherwise going to get rehabilitated had these violent criminals not come and be relocated into the otherwise peaceful jails. So second question, right? What happens to the police in the long term? I think this is the second way in which CEO came into this debate and told you about, right? Notice that under your case, right? If not solitary confinement, you need some way to enforce all of these gangs to not actually like cause acts of violence, right? And I'll tell you about all these things later on, but before that, sure.
Unlike all that's very boxed up for this debate where they want to gang violence doesn't exist, why wouldn't you want more money toward prisons? Isn't money what lacks in prisons for creating R&D and creating farms or more diverse jobs in the first place, which reduces gang violence?
No, those are the things that those are the things that we engage for you from the get-go, right? Like not if like okay, sure, okay, so basically, notice that most prisons that you claim that they will give funding towards and increase more security isn't going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Most of these particular prisons, first of all, you said in the message, we'll take because we make them pay a fine for all these violent acts, you will have to pay a fine, which only means that you send a message to them that says your money is in danger, which more likely means that these people will get the incentive to saving up, right? As a profit incentivizer of jail, you always take the cheaper option, which also means I'll also deal with your best case, even in the case in which you do increase security. Even in the case of that, you also will have these particular prisons being turned into a hellhole. That's why I'm going to it at the moment. Because when you increase security and you increase funding within these particular jails, not only do you have to increase the quality of the jails, of the jail bars and the padlocks and everything, right? But also, in order for you to disincentivize gang violence, you need more policing, you need more supervision within these particular jails in the very first place. What does this mean? I feel at this point, right, even at, you go to a more extreme version of status quo, in which case these particular police, the police force within these jails take more extreme measures to avoid gang violence. They otherwise isolate you, but even at the point in which your gang is mixed together, right, police forces are always going to be there to over police you, and they're likely going to mistreat you because of the so what have we told you overall? First of all, we told you that most of the time, most of the time these people aren't actually going to be rehabilitated either way, because your mechanism of relocating isn't likely going to work because you're sending the otherwise hardened criminals towards people who are originally going to get rehabilitated, which doesn't work under your world either way. Go with CEO.
Thank you very much, Ross, for shaking